It's great to be back at our National Events Conference, the first one since 2019, as Gemma said. And much has happened in that time, with COVID impacting our industry like nothing we've ever seen before. We've had record inflation, global conflict, arguably greater than everything since the Second World War. I'm going to start today by sharing that 20-year journey and looking back on the unparalleled global success and impact Scotland's had on the events industry. So I hope you enjoyed that trip down memory lane. I guess you spotted your favourite memory or favourite event or favourite venue. But what I'm going to do over the next 20 to 25 minutes is take you on a journey, talk about where we've come from, talk about some of the challenges, show you some fantastic highlights of events in action in Scotland, and then throw down, and you would not expect me to use this opportunity, one or two challenges for the room moving forward. So the story so far. Our capability and reputation did not always exist. Many of you remember that in 2002, we lost the bid for the European Football Championships with one vote. That was Scotland's vote. And that was the dawning of a national event strategy. We've had many great successes. We've utilised our assets. We've had consistent and sustained focus. And if you think about that journey in terms of the strategy itself, the first iteration was 2008. 2015, we updated the strategy, and as the Minister's just said, last year we refreshed it. And I sincerely hope that that strategy that will be launched in the spring will be the global restart for Scotland on the international stage. The principles have not changed much. It's about developing events. It's about developing the industry, and it's about developing Scotland. But our past successes are not merely milestones to be celebrated. Our sector needs to continue to be nurtured, developed, and invested in. And I think the implementation plan which is now being developed is absolutely critical for that story. This is a city which is renowned for festivals. For me, it is the world's global event city for festivals, and I don't think we make much of that sometimes. And events serve as a catalyst for innovation, bringing together diverse perspectives, debate, fostering collaboration, and sparking creativity that propels society forward. A fantastic example of this is here on our doorstep in Edinburgh, one of the greatest celebrations of arts and culture in the world. Let's take a look at 2024 that's ahead of us in a few months' time. I think it would be remiss of me also, not on behalf of everyone here today, to wish Nicola well, newly appointed in the International Festival, on the forthcoming birth of her first child. And it's great to see a great Scottish icon in that role, taking that forward over the next few years. But the importance of support and investment for our homegrown event assets, for me, has never been more critical. How can we claim to be the perfect stage for events if we can't support the long-term stability and evolution of our crown jewels? So now we move on to embracing global impacts and innovation. You'll have all recognised that. We're seeing probably some AI today on the screen. In an era defined by unprecedented connectivity, real-time sharing, technological advancement, and of course fake news, there's a wealth of opportunity and indeed challenges for us all to overcome as a sector. You'll hear more specifically on the artificial intelligence from Scottish AI Alliance colleagues later this morning. But for now, let's take a light-hearted example of fake news and digital advancement rolled into one.
Look, it was absolutely a try, believe me. I know it. Everybody knows it. Scotland should have won big time. I know everything about rugby, more than everything. I invented it. It was definitely a try. It's a total conspiracy, the highest level of conspiracy. I'm going to throw France out of NATO.
So there you go. So even President Trump was watching the France-Scotland rugby match a few weeks ago at Murrayfield. So gone are the days of relying solely on traditional marketing channels. Social media has grown to be a major component in driving attendance at events and sharing experiences, pre, post, good and bad. Opportunities to engage with existing fans and followers, but to reach new people and also bring your event to life. The need for proactive planning and a solid social media strategy has never been greater. One of the great examples of the changing technology in a world where technology and digital innovation continues to reshape industries is the ABBA Voyage, which many of you I'm sure have been to in London. The production sees a digital version of ABBA, or avatars, performing alongside a 10-piece live band. Are we witnessing a shift that will become the norm in years to come? Will music and expression become immortal and timeless? Whereas live tours are time-intensive and costly, digital versions of your favourite artists might well be the way forward. Or will it? Discuss, Jeff. AI stands to change the way we plan to execute and experience events. AI for events is not just about robots and automation. It's about leveraging data to create smarter, more efficient experiences. For example, let's take networking like today. Instead of relying on chance encounters, AI will be able to strategically match attendees with shared interests and goals. You might even find your future partner. Wearable technology, I think, is another thing that is developed, and Coldplay have done some fantastic work in that area. Artists introducing wearable technology to their performances, turning the entire crowd into a dazzling extension of the stage and immersing them in a common vision. Coldplay's clever use of light wristbands for concerts, a new addition that only made their concerts visually stunning, but also improved the audience experience. Wearable technology helped deaf and the hard of hearing. Coldplay fans experience bands show live shows in other ways. A great example of an inclusivity at the show was vests that were worn for hard of hearing people, and they could feel the bass of the music via vibrations. Augmented reality and virtual reality has been transforming the way events are consumed and enjoyed. From conferences to festivals, AR and VR are becoming powerful tools for engagement, brand exposure. Sports fans are no longer limitations of the stadium. Augmented reality and virtual reality are rapidly transforming the way fans experience their favourite teams. And again, we couldn't resist putting one of those up for Jeff as his Manchester City, his favourite club. We now move on to, I guess, one of the biggest phenomenons for me in terms of an artist and a brand and an event. Taylor Swift. It's a great example of how an event artist can impact the wider tourism event economy. One often cited statistic is that the whopping $5 billion that Swifties collectively spent across the United States in connection with the Eras Tour was actually $10 billion. There's a forthcoming European tour. Airfares and hotel prices have already begun skyrocketing in the 18 cities Swift is scheduled to perform in later this year. But for me, the most important factor are these last comments. The influence on the Super Bowl elevated the television ratings for women, with 5 million more female viewers turning into the championship game than last year's Super Bowl. The advertising during the game was also targeted much more at female products and 100% hike in ad rates. Drones is the next part of our journey. Drones are fantastic. They've been used to create stunning visual displays at events, but we are seeing examples of activity being taken to new levels. Here's just one example where the sky's the limit, Sky Magic, one of the world's leading drone show specialists, produced this show in Yokohama in Japan. We also move on to an area of esports and gaming. Esports, or fandom growth, which is a new word to me this week, is rapidly outpacing digital innovation, allowing fans to directly interact with players and participate in gaming experiences. Let's move on to impact. The Minister talked very eloquently about the value of the events industry and the need for us to actually encompass that impact. For me, few industries have the impact events do. They play an important role in our communities, enabling us to connect, enjoy, and share memorable experiences. They're ideally placed to continue to deliver tangible results against the objectives of NSET. They also provide a vital means to generate and distribute additional positive social impact. But how do we measure success? We need to think beyond just the economic impact. The importance of social impact has never been greater. Whilst economic prosperity is crucial, the scope of opportunity the events have in terms of alignment with key policy areas and global challenges is huge, i.e. tackling inequality, promoting environmental sustainability. Telling the story of those benefits is equally important, and we don't do that very well at present. We should be propelling the great work that you all do into vital case studies and then socialising that into society. The Cycling Worlds that's already been talking about this morning was a great success for Scotland. And you'll see there the model that was produced by EY, our consultants. Peter Arnold, the lead consultant with EY, is here today. And I'm sure he'll talk to you quite happily about that journey. But if you look at the sectors of that circle, you've got health and well-being, sport excellence, community, lasting impacts, and EDI. That, for me, is a blueprint for the future. And I think it'd be really important that we look at replicating that type of model over the next 10 years of the strategy. So what about priority outcomes? National priority outcomes and policy alignment are key. So it is about the economy, it is about community, it is about the environment, it's about workforce, reputation and profile. But the measurement of the true value of events is critical. For me, the softer impacts and the storytelling, which I've said more than once, will be vital moving forward. So I'm just going to quickly run through some quick case studies to give you some examples of some great stories. The Open Golf Championships and Geo Golf have done some fantastic work around environmental sustainability. And Scotland is the first founding partner of that organisation in the world. Para-integration at last year's World Championships was a first. It had never been done in sport, and something that Scotland should be very proud of. For me, this next one is really poignant, and I really have some empathy with this. The Afghan cycling team. The Afghan United Women's Empowerment Project received funding through Glasgow Life's Go Cycle Glasgow Fund. Community activation around the cycling worlds. This would not have happened without the event last August. Hebcelt, way up in Stornoway. For the past 2 years, they've improved their waste reduction and also been working with hydrogen to power different elements of the festival site, compliant with Scotland's single-use plastic ban scheme. And they have partnerships with organisations such as Lewis Wind Power, a long-term sponsor, placed sustainability at the forefront of the message in their event. And reputation and profile. This again is a fascinating picture. This is the Champions League final in Paris. And I wonder now whether we are treating attendees at our events as customers, spectators, or should I say guests? Because they are guests. They're guests in our world. We have a custodian of their time and they're spending their money with us. And I think it's really important now that we change our psyche in terms of how we treat people that come to events. And the last part of this, before I reach some conclusion, is volunteers. Volunteers are at the bedrock of our society. They do everything that make our events happen. Without volunteers, none of us would be in this room. Let's just have a little look at some great words from one or two volunteers recently at the World Indoor Athletics Championships in Glasgow.
I love athletics. I used to be an athlete, so this is me giving back to helping the event run smoothly. So I know how hard it is, the logistics of getting the event to run in. So I like to be involved. I just love doing it. I love coming up to Scotland. This is like the third time I come up to Scotland.
I love the buzz of big, large-scale events. I love the sort of the atmosphere in local cities and stuff where everybody gets involved and sort of really passionate about sport.
I just love the buzz and the excitement of seeing people kind of really enjoy themselves and have a part to play in an event that is in their city, and they can showcase how proud they are and really just help make everything special.
They give you options on the different types of roles you can get into. Basically, they just give access to people that would normally have access into volunteering, an opportunity to get into it if it's something that they're interested in.
Some fantastic people with some fantastic stories. And I think if you talk to volunteers at events now, you know, it's an important part for some of them in terms of their mental health. It's an important part of them in terms of their skills, their place in society, their confidence, and their feel-good factors. And we shouldn't forget how important those volunteers are to us, in the same way that spectators should be treated as guests. So moving in terms of the future, what's next? We have an incredibly challenging landscape. This next slide just shows the sort of areas that we're having to work through. We've got limited funding, regulation and legislation like never before. Competition, which I'll talk about in a minute, is growing fast. People are in short supply. There are increasing costs in the supply chain. And of course, the global economic situation in terms of both inflation and the issues in terms of war have created major challenges for us. So our competitors, many of you remember the Thundering Hooves report, I think in 2005. Yes, I even got the year right, which is good. But I sense there's a Thundering Hooves for our industry now, not just about festivals, but I think it's a wider debate for us. The UK is catching up with Scotland fast, and they have money. France is at a point where they're pivoting around new Olympics, Paralympics, Rugby World Cup, etc., etc. In the business events area, the Middle East is very, very buoyant. We can't ignore Saudi Arabia. We might not like it, but they are a massive disruptor in the events world and actually are probably here to stay. And Melbourne, we've got somebody here from Down Under with us later in the morning, but Melbourne have significantly increased their event funding on the back of the challenges of COVID. So what about the future landscape? And what about you in this room? Our response to climate emergency will be critical. The 360-degree welfare of staff, volunteers, performers and attendees is key. It's been quite interesting that we've seen deaths at pop concerts in South America due to heat. That's the first time I think we've experienced things like that. Data will be king. We have to have a future pipeline of events. And we have to inspire the next generation. Or I have to say, from seeing the young ladies this morning, I don't think we've got any problems there inspiring a future generation. We need to have a collaborative Team Scotland effort, a strong sector voice, and we're very well led by Peter at present in the Events Industry Advisory Group. maintaining ambition, taking risk, which is not something we like to do in a very much of a governance-controlled world that we now live. And we have to have a clear, measurable action plan. So, in conclusion, Scotland does enjoy unparalleled success and continues to define much of the leading-edge developments within the events world. However, we now face perhaps our most challenging time this country has faced. I'm concerned that without truly unified and concerted effort, we face an existential threat that could take another 20 years to recover. If I was to describe our current success, I genuinely believe we deliver at the pace of a cheetah. However, that position can very quickly be eroded, and I do not want to see us take a step backwards. I think everyone in this room fully understands the global economic challenges that we face. But without committed, long-term incremental growth, I do fear that our decades of success are at risk. We are already seeing significant threats to many events across the sporting, business and cultural sectors. Yet this is an industry that contributes more widely than perhaps any other to society. The inextricable link between tourism and events could be at risk if we fail to convince public, commercial and philanthropic investors that this sector is actually an investment in growth and not a pure spend. So that leads me to one final question. Do we care? I know everyone in this room cares passionately about this industry, and perhaps now is the time when we collectively have to further demonstrate to influencers the value of our industry. This is not just about economic impact and national profile and pride. This sector's reach and impact is much greater across Scottish society. Our time to be heard and be less passive is perhaps now. To close this morning, a video which I thought reinforced the love of Scotland, our crowds, our venues, where dreams can be made, personal bests achieved, and historic moments captured. Something which struck me through listening to Seb Coe's narrative was that he mentioned that the test of character is in the difficult times. It's not when everything is going well. This is actually true both on and off the field. As a sector, we've come through many challenging times, yet our determination to remain ambitious, innovative, and adapt should remain steadfast. Thank you. Roll the film.
These games have been fantastic. I'm not surprised. Glasgow, Scotland, always serve us really well. Passionate, knowledgeable crowd. Little bit of help from Josh Kerr, and Molly of course. But look, we've seen sumptuous athletics. We've seen head-to-heads. We've seen men and women of equal stature bringing the fans in.
I am ready for you to be.
Everywhere I've looked on that track, field as well, we've had performances that some of them have been for the ages. Doesn't get much better than Christian Coleman and Noah Lyles. Femke Bol is in that rich seam of form, absolutely at the top of her game at the moment. A fantastic athlete, an extraordinary ambassador.
For you, to be here.
To all the athletes that feel that they didn't meet their potential or even sadly got injured on this occasion, your time will come again. And the test of character is in the difficult times. It's not when everything is going well. The longest and the most powerful friendships are often made in sport, and they're made at times of adversity, but they're also made at times of shared enjoyment for athletics, which I think is a unique sport. And those friendships run deep and they run for a long time.
I am ready for you to be.